Not bad. I'm traveling this week, so I'm coming to you from a hotel room. Hopefully, everything goes well there.
Sounds alright at the moment.
Yeah, it's probably better than my office because my office is
It
like a
looks
small
nice, I'll tell you
box.
that much.
Yeah, it's a lot bigger than my office space because my office is like a rectangle, and I'm kind of like cornered into it, and so this is like a whole room.
You
But
seen any
yeah,
rockets this week?
yeah. I came here to see three rocket launches out here at Kennedy Space Center, and it looks like I'll probably get to see at least one because as one gets delayed, it's like dominoes, and the next one gets pushed
Okay.
back, and so on. And so the first launch was supposed to be a few days ago, and now we're on like it'll be like the fourth night that it actually tries to launch again. So we'll see how that goes. But it's been kind of neat because I'm here for the week traveling, and the hotel I came to found it last time, and this time I'm like I'm gonna stay the whole time, and went to the gym on the first night I was here. The first morning I was here, because I'm wearing my watch again, the Apple Watch, and I'm like, go use the gym, go use the elliptical, and it turns out that the treadmill and the other, well, three treadmills, one elliptical, and then another style of elliptical all had GymKit for real in the wild that you can use.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's wild. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, so right now the status is that at 2 a.m. on Saturday morning I should get to see a launch. And um, what we do for taking pictures of the launches is that you go out like a day before the launch happens and you put a camera out at the launch pad with a remote trigger that goes off by sound,
hmm
and so the trigger hears the engines roar and the camera takes pictures
Oh, so
for
it's
you.
like so you don't have the delay if you like clicking the button, it just
Well,
goes.
you can't be there. Like
Ah,
you're
okay,
too
yeah, yeah, yeah.
close for a person to be,
I
and
see.
then you program the settings so the exposure and everything of like what it needs to be, and then you go back out there after the launch and you pick up your camera and you see if you got anything.
That's what they need as an iPhone 12 feature, just audio-based shooting.
That would be a really cool commercial. And there's someone who I've written about, a friend named Michael Kane. I wrote a post on 95 Mac about him because he uses an iPhone for this sometimes, and he does like he lets it run video, and then he takes frames from the video. But iPhones get hot when they do that, even if you're charging them, or especially if you're charging them.
Yeah,
So it has like fans on USB and like ice packs and stuff. So the photographers get really creative. But because of the delays, we've had to go out there like 2 or 3 times so far to like reset our cameras and get fresh batteries and stuff. So
well,
it's
even if you
been
don't see a rocket launch, at least you found GymKit, which is like as rare as catching a shiny Pokemon, I feel like. So.
seriously. And
Yeah.
so one of my photographers for Space Explorer, Seth Kurkowski, he's here this week too, and so we worked together on just kind of like capturing GymKit in use. And it gave me even more reason to just like try it out in depth. And as we were like kind of testing it out to make a video, I was finding more and more features, and I was just like, it was like Christmas,
That's
It's like,
cool.
oh, there's new stuff. I did not know it did this. So we'll talk about that in a little
Yeah,
bit.
we will talk about GymKit in just a little bit.
Yeah.
First, it's Epic and Apple again. Like, this is a predominant story, and hopefully it's going to quieten down for this week for a little while. But the latest update in the massive saga is that we're recording the 27th. Tomorrow is the 28th of August, which is the day that Apple said that they were going to terminate Epic Games' developer accounts permanently until obviously the court case gets resolved in one way or another. Um, as of today, the season update for Fortnite is rolling out to all other platforms. Obviously, iOS customers are being left behind. So are the probably 3 people that play Fortnite on a Mac, because they're also not updating the Mac app. Probably because if the developer account gets closed down, they won't be able to notarize it. So then it'll come with those silly warnings like, this account is malware. This piece of software is malware. We can't trust it. Blah, blah. But
Yeah.
obviously, Apple was threatening to shutter all of Epic's accounts because relating both to Fortnite and to their other properties like the Unreal Engine, which is basically like this overriding framework that loads of games use, and it even has uses outside of games like video production. They do background scenes sometimes if they're doing CGI background work. A lot of the time that's using the Unreal Engine. And so because Epic had violated the rules and they direct payments, Apple was doing its normal process of just shuttering down all the developer accounts, not just the Epic Games account. Well, as obviously the legal process is very beleaguered and complicated, one of the trials before they get to the real trial was about a preliminary restraining order that Epic wanted to stop Apple from being able to remove Fortnite from the App Store, and it also wanted to stop Apple from removing the Unreal Engine certificates and support. And so in this hilarious trial preliminary trial that happened over Zoom, which I actually tuned into, and it was one of the funniest things in the world because you had like the Apple lawyers, the Epic lawyers, and then you have the judge, but she's obviously at home, right? But she had the virtual background of like the thing, and
oh no,
and it was like
quality,
cutting,
at least? Oh no,
and it was cutting out constantly, and she had like somewhat frizzy hair, and you know what the fake Zoom green screens are like. There's just massive gaps across it. It was the funniest thing while like. This $1 trillion and multi-billion-dollar company like battling it out over whether app's going to get removed. You just got the judge like banging a hammer on this virtual set. It was hilarious. But basically in the preliminary investigations, the judge basically reads the filings that get sent to them, and she just makes a decision. The point is that this is just for the interim until they have the full court case where they have all the rigmarole and they actually have a proper opinion drawn. So the result of that was that. Apple is allowed to ban the Epic Games account, which means the Fortnite will be affected, but they're not allowed to ban Epic's other accounts that address the properties like the Unreal Engine.
Which is pretty fair.
Yeah, and if the legal reason has nothing to do with fairness or whatever, it was the fact that Epic Games basically has 6 subsidiaries, and one of the subsidiaries had a developer account which covered Fortnite, and then a different subsidiary had a separate developer agreement, so they'd paid $99 twice to cover Unreal Engine. Yeah. So basically, and the way that the judge interpreted the rules was that these contracts are separate. So while Epic was in violation of the Fortnite one, they weren't in violation of the other one. So that's why it happened. Like I saw some people on Twitter like, the judge is really stupid. Epic, broke the rules. This is the reality of the situation, and of course those arguments don't matter when you finally get down to the business, but for the preliminary hearings, it's just based on, the letter of the law. So that's the situation. It will be, there's already quite a lot of people on Twitter upset that they can't join their friends on the new update because the new season's coming out. We remains to be seen exactly how consequential the closing of the developer account of the Epic Games account will be. Like, is Fortnite going to stop launching on iOS? Some people think it will. I'm not entirely sure, but I think so. But maybe not immediately. You have to wait for the certificates to expire over the next 2 weeks or whatever.
I think if you have an Apple Arcade subscription, it'll have a grace period. It'll prompt you to subscribe to Arcade.
That's kind of funny.
Using your old app.
So yeah, that'll and then they said that the actual trial is going to start on September 28th. So in about a month's time,
which is usually iPhone release time.
Yeah, so it clashes with all the iPhone stuff.
And at this time of in this year that we're in, that could be around an iPhone event even.
Yeah, for real, right? Yeah. So that'll all flare up again around that time. Also this week again, because every App Store debacle is a huge story these days. There was a WordPress thing where the WordPress developer basically said that Apple was blocking their app from being updated because it was circumventing in-app purchase system, but then the WordPress developer on Twitter said that our app doesn't actually sell anything. It just lets you manage your CMS for the open source version of WordPress. It's not directly related to WordPress.com or anything. Well, it transpired that if you pressed on help and support and then clicked on this link and then clicked on the link in the footer, you can find your way to pricing pages, which you could subscribe in an in-app web view, which is following Apple's rules and not allowed because most of these apps nowadays have to have special separate websites that they show to iOS customers just so they don't get counted as trying to screw people out of 30%.
Right.
For better or worse, that's the current situation. So that's why it turned out Apple pulled it. They changed it. There was a bit of miscommunication that I think the WordPress developers said that they would give them an Icebox website, and then the app review said that wouldn't be enough, and then basically Apple apologized for miscommunication, but it's back on the store. And that's kind of what I thought was the reason when they just tweeted it initially. But I'd say 99 out of 100 people are like, Apple's just continuing to be money miser and things. Yeah, and there is a point to be made that they're no longer being given the benefit of the doubt, right? Because
that's right.
Sentiment is against them.
Yeah, I was talking to a photographer here who I just met, and we were talking about 9 to 5 Mac and different things. And he's an iPhone user, but he's like, to him, he's younger, and the Fortnite situation, that was front of mind for him. And he was like, only thing keeping me on the iPhone is that I've invested in paid apps that I don't want to buy again on Android. But because of the Fortnite situation, I don't love Apple. And for us, we have a decade of use that kind of gives us our impression of Apple, and we've seen what's happening now with the App Store, the origins of all these policies, and then Apple's overgrowth to where it becomes a problem. But if you're brand new to this stuff, Apple's really uncool in that situation.
People don't care about the history.
Right, yeah.
And they shouldn't, right? There's millions of people who are now mad that Fortnite isn't available on the platform. And in a way, yes, it was Epic initiated because Epic could have just filed a lawsuit and the app could just carried on. But it doesn't really. Again, those explanations are irrelevant really when you get down to brass tacks. Like the current status quo is that some percentage of Apple's customers are unhappy because the most popular game in the world isn't currently available on their platform, and that's one of the negotiating chips on the table, right?
Can you fill me in on maybe from the news side? Has anything changed on Android on the Play Store for Google?
I do not believe so. I believe that the app is still not on the Google Play Store, but you can download it directly from Epic's website and do the side loading thing.
Okay, which wasn't successful there before as a business model.
Correct.
But in this case, they have to take that sacrifice to have this battle with Apple.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know the status of the lawsuit with Google, but obviously Epic's being much more loud and noisy about the iOS situation, which I think is fair because at least on Android there is a secondary way that they can install the app. So it makes sense for them to make more of a deal about the Apple side than the Android side, just because the Android side does have that release valve, even if it's not ideal. And these things will get sorted out in court eventually, but it's a mess. And for me personally, I don't play Fortnite, but the game streaming stuff that is going to start launching on Android in September, like xCloud is starting the middle of September. That affects me. I'd love to play some of those games on my phone or on my iPad or even on the Apple TV. And Apple still is yet to announce any revised policies as far as game streaming is concerned too. So that's they're proper factors, and people just laugh them off as like, ha ha, it's Fortnite. Like one of the quotes from the preliminary hearing was the Apple lawyer saying, "We want people to ride sharks and buy dances in Fortnite just as much as anyone else." It is a classic, but that's the situation. Hopefully, these companies can get to some sort of resolution that makes people happy while they fight about money in court. But for the time being, that's not happening. And to Epic's credit, I guess they haven't backed down and they haven't said. I think the fact that the Unreal Engine is no longer affected because they got the restraining order on that. They can take the hit on Fortnite, but if it was going to affect Unreal Engine as well, they'd have probably had to relent and just back down. But they won that side of the court of the preliminary order, so they can carry on with their crusade as is for the time being.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about a sponsor for a moment.
Sure, and then we will talk about your GymKit experience.
Sure. Yeah.
Everyone needs a great pair of wireless earbuds. If you're working out at the gym or just trying to concentrate when working at home, you want to hear what you want to listen to, not what is going on in the rest of the house. Before you go out and drop hundreds of dollars on a pair, you need to check out the wireless earbuds from Raycon. Raycon earbuds start at about half the price of any other premium wireless earbuds on the market, with rich sound quality and bass. And they've just released their newest model, the Everyday E25 earbuds, with 6 hours of playtime, seamless pairing, and a more compact design for a comfortable, noise-isolating fit. Raycon earbuds are stylish and discreet, with no dangling wires or stems to distract anyone during video calls. And I know, Zach, that you've been using Raycon earbuds recently, right?
Yeah, I got in a pair to try out, and when they first arrived, I tried them just to kind of compare them to AirPods and have experience for the sponsorship. Since then, my AirPods case has gone missing a couple of times. Having a 3-year-old in the house, it tends to walk away, and so it's like, well, I want music to watch dishes too, and so I've those are the closest things near me, and I put them in, and each time I use the Raycons, it's really neat how flush they are, and it's a really cool form factor, and for the price, I mean, the sound is totally cool. I've fallen asleep with them in my ears listening to music, so good stuff.
Yeah, I think they're pretty cool. Now's the time to get the latest and greatest from Raycon. Get 15% off your order at buyraycon.com/happyhour. From that page, use promo code HAPPY15 at checkout. That's HAPPY number 15. One more time, go to buyraycon.com/happyhour for 15% off Raycon wireless earbuds with promo code HAPPY15. buyraycon.com/happyhour.
So, GymKit.
You finally found it.
Yeah, GymKit was announced in the summer of summer of 2017 at WWDC. Was released that fall, and I think this is the year when it's Apple Watch Series 3 is the new watch.
Yes, that sounds right.
Yeah, and so in terms of just Apple Watch hardware, think about it as you've had Series 3, you've had Series 4, we're at Series 5, we're right at Series 7 now, so 3 to 7. It's okay, so we've had about 4 years now, and
it's Series 6 this year, but because it's
WatchOS 7.
WatchOS 7. I know.
I can count. Don't worry.
The classic. Apple numbering
No, they're
scheme.
skipping 6, dude. They're going to 7. It's gonna be good. No. So this was like 4 years of GymKit being supported in the software. Apple's pointed to a couple of gyms around the world that have GymKit, in Australia, in the UK, in New York. There's some, I guess, super high end gym like fitness clubs that have gym equipment there. And then I've always tracked like how can you buy like a treadmill with gym kit, or elliptical with gym kit for yourself, and the machines are always like 10 grand and up, so super expensive, not really consumerly priced. And this week at this hotel I'm staying at, it's a Hyatt Place hotel, and it's fairly new. And I just went in their gym to use their elliptical, and it had gym kit, and then the 3 treadmills had gym kit, and the other style of elliptical had gym kit. So 5 gym kit machines right there, and it's neat. So the pitch for gym kit is that if you're on a treadmill, the machine knows your incline and your speed because you program that on the machine. And then it can try to get your heart rate from sensors on the machine or a Bluetooth heart rate monitor, but it can't do that from your watch. And it doesn't know what your watch knows about you in terms of like how you burn calories. And so if you can trade that information back and forth, then you've got a full picture. Just like if you're running outside, for example, can measure different more like speed and incline. But
Yeah,
not on a
incline's like
treadmill.
the perfect example, right? Because
Yeah.
the watch knows if you're moving your arms up and down, but it doesn't know at what angle you're walking when
Yeah,
you're
it
not.
just knows that you're going slow and it's intense for you, but it doesn't know why.
Yeah.
And so with GymKit, it's NFC based, so you like it's like you're doing a tap with your watch to the machine, and there's some things I guess I didn't realize about how it works because it's been so hard to find. But it's really cool. You tap your watch to the machine, it knows what kind of machine it is. So and this is like I'm on the watch face during the time, and I tap the watch, and it launches the workout app and asks me on a treadmill, indoor run or indoor walk, and you pick which one, and you can set your goal on the watch or the machine, and you can press start on the watch or the machine, and one go, and they're both in sync together. They start. If you pause on one, it pauses on the other. If you end the workout on the machine, it goes to the summary page on your watch.
Huh.
It's really well done. And there's a whole privacy angle, like when you're finished with the workout, the gym machine doesn't know anything about you because the idea it's a public place, so there's no like profiles to log into, and accidentally like leave your information in a public machine. The reality is nobody does that. Like nobody bothers signing into those things. But in this way, like your database of all your workouts is your iPhone, the health app, and the fitness app now, and iOS 14 or the activity app before that, and your watch is what connects you to the machine, and you get all that data back on your watch. And so we'll have a story probably next week with a little bit of a video explainer and hands-on with it. But of course, you just get so much more information out of it, and more importantly, the data is accurate because anytime you run with a watch and the treadmill, you're likely to get very different results in terms of calories burned, because it's neither machine has the best picture, the
Yeah.
full picture of what you're doing.
Neither side knows everything.
Right. For the elliptical, there was like what I'm used to seeing as an elliptical. It's like, okay, pair that. There's no option for elliptical, or there's no options within the elliptical workout. It's just elliptical, and so you do that. It pairs up, and like you start the workout. There was another machine that I really wasn't sure what it was because it just looked different than the elliptical that I'm used to. So I was like, I wonder what it's going to be when I pair it and do the little tap. And it was also elliptical. It was just a different style. But it was kind of neat. It's like, I'm going to learn what this is called. Oh, it's just elliptical. But it's very cool. I mean, in those moments, there were a couple of times where I had paired it and then I didn't. You got to say okay, like I meant to do this, and then it initiates and then it actually pairs. And I would ignore it, and if you did that, then it would get upset and like it wouldn't pair again, and I had to like wait a few seconds or like force quit the workout app, with like the side button and the home button, the crown to make it to force quit it. But bugs aside, like and it shouldn't be buggy 4 years on, but I think that was because it was specifically that scenario of I tap it to pair and then I don't do anything for several seconds. But I was like, those moments of surprise and delight. I was honestly surprised whenever I would stop the workout on the screen and the watch would like give me that tap, like it paused, and it did. Or when I ended and it ended the workout, and then it works the same way. The watch controls the screen or the machine too. And maybe I knew that, but it's been 4 years of looking for GymKit.
Yeah, who could remember what they promised for GymKit?
Yeah,
So long
and when
ago.
you look back at the workout and activity or fitness on your phone, it tells you like the machine that you used, the brand, and it's just got so much more information about what you did. So like for elliptical, I think there was a whole metric that you didn't have because you don't have the treadmill thing, but there was like power and intensity and stuff like that. So definitely cool. Like I wish it was affordable. I wish you could have it at home. I wish it was in more places, but it's
Yeah, like
it's a unicorn.
someone in the YouTube chat was asking, is it an iOS 14 feature? And it's like, no, it's like an iOS 10 feature.
Yeah, and it's kind of in those categories of features where I think it's probably off by default, or it should be, because it's somewhere in the process of the Apple Watch. It's listening for that, communication from that
Right,
NFC
yeah.
chip. And
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's like instead of doing Apple Pay with NFC, it's doing whatever link up to connect to the Bluetooth.
right, and there's
in
no
the
like
gym.
hardware thing to do. It's just you tap it and it knows, which I also found neat. Like, because it's one of the frustrating things about starting working out with the watch is that you can streamline the process, put a complication to start it, use your voice, whatever. But there was no like doing anything on the watch, which was what I liked. It was like you tap the watch, say okay. No tapping, looking for the workout app, going through this list of workouts, setting your metrics. You did it all from the big screen in front of you. And so it was more than just it stays in sync together and gets the fullest picture of data. It was also the convenience of the remote control kind of ability.
Yeah, and you showed me you sent me a screenshot of it, and it even has like the icon that matches up with the equipment, right? Like,
Yeah,
instead
yeah.
of the normal workout, like elliptical sign, it has like
Yeah,
the
and they
little-
don't call it GymKit on the machine, which is smart because it's one of those like that's the framework, I guess, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so it's the kind of typical works with Apple Watch badge, and it also says works with like Samsung Galaxy. So cool, it was neat, and it was Life Fitness branded equipment. There are categories outside of treadmill and elliptical that work with GymKit. I think maybe rower is one, and this gym had a rower, but it wasn't a GymKit rower. But that's something I want to look at before we do the story. Is what are the other categories? But if you ever, are around Kennedy Space Center, go to the Hyatt Place Hotel.
Yeah,
and use the gym.
That's the sad part of the story, is that it's now 3-4 years on, and we're still like, oh, we're so happy that we managed to find it in one location. Like it's not even pervasive in gyms, let alone like home equipment, right? Like,
right.
It's
yeah,
very,
it's
very slow.
Yeah, it's a shame you can't say like this certain gym, like fitness club has it now. It's like this newly built hotel has it,
Yeah.
So you can't even say like go to a Hyatt Place somewhere else and it will, because you don't know. And
It's
I
like a lot of
tweeted-
CarPlay features which get announced years back, but it just takes so long for the manufacturers to catch up.
That's right. Some of those really really neat ones that would be cool to exist, they kind of don't ever exist because of whatever reason. But GymKit's in that area. I tweeted like just out of excitement, oh my gosh, this hotel I'm staying at for the week has GymKit, and I could not believe the response that got. I thought that was be one of those like silly tweets that I just do for fun.
Yeah.
There are like hundreds of reactions to it, like because it was one of those things like people were like that's real.
Yeah, people found it like it's because you just remember it from so long ago, and it's
I mean, we used to get kind of pitched from Apple to be like, hey, look, there's this gym in Australia, and someone from Apple will go out and do a video, like it'll be on their local news. Look at this new Apple technology and this new state-of-the-art gym in 2017, and 4 years later, we're talking about
GymKit's like an endangered species. It's
right.
just,
We're like,
you
hey, we
have
found
to
it. Like,
hunt it down.
we haven't discussed it on this show, but like I believe that we've got reporting that we haven't shared before that there's a streamlined version of GymKit that we don't know a lot about it, so we haven't reported it, but that there's some version of GymKit that is more
there's some
easier
initiative
to implement than today.
Yeah, there's some initiative where maybe the manufacturers have to do less effort and less work, and it can just use some more industry standard protocol to try and increase adoption of it, so that more people can actually use the feature, like some sort of GymKit Express type thing. Kind of like what they did with HomeKit, where originally the HomeKit processes were very complicated and required, big long authentication. They acquired special chips, and then they slowly have eased it back. So now you can do software-only authentication, which has opened up the HomeKit ecosystem quite a lot. And so it seems like they're trying, or at least developing, some sort of equivalent for GymKit as well.
Yeah, so something that's quicker. All right, and then we also got iOS 13.7 beta this week, and it was it's a pretty high number for point releases, but it's also a very special year. So what's in iOS 13.7 beta?
Yeah, so this is the first beta of iOS 13.7, which will let users opt in to COVID-19 exposure notifications without the need to download an app. So this is kind of the start of the second phase stuff that we talked about, months ago now, probably back in April, right? And so up to now, the COVID-19 exposure notifications don't do anything in settings until you have a compatible app in your region, and then you have to sign up through the app, and then that starts sending you alerts and starts communicating. Apple and Google had always said that their plan was down the line for a phase 2 to come in where more of that functionality can be built directly into the operating system, i.e. the tracking part and sharing the anonymous identifiers. You'd still need an app to report yourself as being positive, but in terms of just being the passive bystander who just gets an alert if someone's been nearby, they've always said that there'll be a way that they're going to build it into the operating system directly, and this seems to be that update. At least that's how it's described in the release notes. So that's pretty cool. I mean, it's reasonably speedy.
It's that phase 2 release that they mentioned all those months ago, and it would, as with everything with this, it's been kind of unclear about will it even happen. It's not out yet. It's in beta, but we now see how it will look. Presumably a future, I guess, when it's out of beta on iOS 13.7, it'll come to a version of 14 before 14's released.
Yeah, like the fact that 13.7 is currently in beta kind of suggests, a lot of people were like, oh, including me, I was like, oh, maybe that means that iOS 14 is obviously launching later in October or something, so they can get 13.7 out in the first week of September and it not immediately be replaced by 14 in 2 days' time, right? Yeah. Mark Gurman, obviously, ex-colleague and now works at Bloomberg, said that his sources indicate that that's not the case, that 13.7 is in beta and it will come out, but iOS 14 is still on track to ship in September like normal years.
Yeah,
so,
I love Mark. Mark tweeted, it was kind of like, he was putting out the idea.
Yeah.
14 can't be close because 13.7 is only in beta and we're in the end of August. And then he replied back to his own tweet an hour or so later. I guess he learned new things since he tweeted that out, put it out there. And it's you would think, but that's not the case.
Yeah, he did the old bait and switch.
Yeah.
He got a little birdie after tweeting his logical opinion, and then he got corrected.
Yeah.
So apparently iOS 14 is coming in September, and then the iPhone 12 will come in, in the middle of October, and that will ship with 14.1 or something.
Yeah, which is not too unlike last year when the release iPhones were actually their first versions were point updates for everybody else.
Yeah, for everyone else got the 0.1s and the phone shipped with 0.0, but the numbers kind of irrelevant.
Yeah.
Apple can ship whatever builds they want and call them whatever they want ultimately.
Yeah.
And a lot of years they do a thing where they ship with 0.0s and they have a day one update to 0.0, 0.1, which only is available on the new phones, and then everyone else just upgrades to X 0.1, the first major update together. So they shift around their build numbers constantly. But this will be the first year where the major iOS version will ship significantly before the the flagship phones were, which will be interesting. But that's just another consequence of the COVID-19 that we live in, the COVID-19 world that we currently live in.
That's right. And our friend Sigmund Judge, we'll get to the chat at the end of the episode, but I just want to call out one thing. Our friend Sigmund Judge said in response to our discussion about the idea of a GymKit Express kind of thing, that's fantastic news, that he's interested to see what they do for the at-home market given the situation. And that reminded me, oh yeah, this is the year that we believe, I guess we saw, and then it's also been reported separately, that Apple's going to do this at-home stuff with fitness classes, maybe as a subscription business. And you could see that being, okay, you're at home, you already have a treadmill, you already have an elliptical, whatever, you already have a bike. So maybe GymKit Express is some thing you get with your subscription, and it makes your stuff interact with each other. Your watch and your equipment interact.
That's definitely a motivation for them to work on it, right?
Right, for the first time in 4 years.
Yeah. Because you can assume if they're going to do at-home virtual classes, they're going to want to sell treadmills and stuff in the Apple Store, and so if they can find a quick way to
Well, they don't even have to sell treadmills because the market is kind of like the treadmills, like the TV set, where it's like just so general that you can get like a used one for on every treadmills are easy to find. It's
Sure.
making them smart and connected that isn't. And so like if GymKit Express is is like a hardware complement to it, where like it takes Bluetooth and it like that's the middle connector between your watch and the machine, then that's what they sell. And then the idea is instead of buying a super fancy piece of hardware that's going to be outdated, you can use all the machines that are already in all the gyms and just add this to it, and then now your watch is connected to it in a smart way.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. That's that's perfect motivation for them.
Yeah, and use our new service where we stream classes to you for a fee. So, all right, let's take another break there, if you will.
Yeah, and we'll be back with some iPhone 12, iPad Air 4, and even some iOS 14 beta stuff.
Sweet.
Want to skip the grocery store? With more of us avoiding outdoor trips than ever before, Sunbasket is a great way to eat delicious, healthy food without having to go out. Get Sunbasket fresh and ready meals delivered to you each week. Sunbasket meals are made with organic fresh produce, sustainable seafood, and using meat that is free of antibiotics, hormones, and steroids. Their chefs have won Michelin stars and a James Beard Award. So why not take the night off and let them cook for you? Try delicious meals such as pappardelle pasta with wilted spinach, sweet peas and fresh ricotta, or southwestern turkey and sweet potato skillet, or maybe even cauliflower macaroni and cheese. Meals come freshly prepared, there's no recipe to follow or prep needed. Put them straight in the oven and they heat up in as little as 6 minutes. It's incredibly convenient, all you have to do is heat and eat, which means no mess in your kitchen and far less cleanup than a traditional prepared meal. Sunbasket also supports diets such as paleo, vegetarian, Mediterranean, and there's gluten-free options as well to check out. Sunbasket facilities have the highest levels of food and employee safety, and in the wake of COVID-19, they've been reinforcing their adherence to operating procedures, increasing how regularly that they sanitize their offices and their distribution centers. Right now, Sunbasket is offering $35 off your order when you go to sunbasket.com/happyhour and enter promo code happyhour, all one word, at checkout. That's sunbasket.com/happyhour and enter promo code happyhour at checkout for $35 off your order. sunbasket.com/happyhour, promo code happyhour.
All right, iOS 14 beta 6. This is one of those updates where like, okay, the new beta, let me update and see if it's better. I don't think it's that much better. I think 4 was rough, 5 was rough, 6 is. I'm seeing the same things in 6. What about you?
Yeah, I think we're getting there slowly. Beta 6 seems okay to me. I haven't had any crazy bugs. There is a problem where the the Safari view controller, like the in-app web view that loads of apps use, that Apple like offers as like a stock component that like Tweetbot uses or Twitter for Twitter users and those kind of apps. You can't swipe back anymore. Like before, you could just do the normal swipe back gesture with your finger. You have to press the done button, so that's kind of a pain. But that's like the main problem I've had. I think they're getting there in terms of stability, which is good news if they are planning on shipping in September, because we don't really want a repeat of what they did last year, where the iOS 13 launch was kind of derised at because it was such a mess.
Yeah, I use my iPhone a lot as my camera, and so there's a lot of situations where I want to take a picture with it, and it's a beta, so it's okay. But the camera bugs out. It just goes into that blur state over and over.
See, I was having that, but it kind of went away with beta 5, so I haven't had that problem so much recently.
I was having it, and I was using Halide as the solution, and then now Halide has it in the beta. Halide goes black when the camera goes blur. So clearly, it's a work in progress.
Fairly work in progress. Yeah, there's a few new features and stuff in this beta. There's a shortcut now you can set up to switch between user accounts on tvOS. So if you have like a kids shortcut, you can make it switch to their profile on the TV, as well as open maybe an app to go straight to kids content, which is neat. One of the things I complained about when iOS 14 was in the first beta was about the contextual Siri. So like rather than Siri taking over the whole screen, it just comes up as the little circle. And on the iPad, it seemed like a really cool thing to do because it makes it more like the Mac experience where you can carry on uninterrupted with your work and just ask Siri in the corner and something pops up and you ask a question. However, on the earlier iPad OS betas, it was contextual in that you could see what was behind Siri, but you couldn't do anything with it because you just tap
Right.
on the app and it would
It
immediately
defeated
dismiss.
the purpose. I mean, I think the Mac might even be that way.
Yeah, so the Mac does let you do some stuff while it's coming up on the side.
Okay. Yeah, the Mac stays there forever.
Yeah.
Get rid of it.
Yeah, it has the opposite problem.
Yes.
But that was
Now
kind of
I
stupid
recall.
on the iPad. It was like, why can you see the background if you can't do anything with it? Well, as of like beta 5, beta 6, you can do some limited interactions now. I think as soon as you quit the current app and switch to a different one, it goes away. And there is some mixed opinion on whether the fact that you can interact with the background is a feature or a bug. Like, we're not entirely sure there, but it should be a feature. And basically, you can just carry on using the background app, and then when you're finally done with Siri, you just swipe it away to the right, or like say if you navigate away to a different app, it goes away by itself, which makes sense because otherwise it's just tantalizing you with what you can see behind you, but as soon as you tap on the screen, Siri immediately dismisses, which never makes any sense. That's still how it works on the phone. The phone is a smaller screen experience, so maybe it makes more sense there where you don't want to, occlude everything with the Siri overlay, so you tap and it goes away by itself.
Yeah.
They've polished up the date picker stuff. We talked about that last week, how now you can like swipe up and down on the text field of the date picker to kind of get some of the gestures that you used to be able to do with the wheels design. They've just done some little polishing tweaks where there's now like a hint of the numbers being above and below, so it's more obvious that you can do the gesture, which is nice. And you get some nice, tactile feedback, and there's a nice like outline around the thing. So they're shaping up to be really good. Spatial audio, which is the upcoming exciting AirPods feature.
Like AirPods surround sound.
AirPods surround sound, right, where you can, and if you like move your iPad around, the idea is the sound will redirect, so it seems like it's coming out of your device in sync. That still isn't in this beta, but now there's a toggle for it in settings, so we're getting closer, but the actual feature doesn't work yet. That's probably waiting on AirPods firmware, right? So that would be one of the things that comes out when it comes out for real, and then you'll be able to get the new firmware, which then enables that feature. And the other iPods feature coming this year is the automatic switching. So if you pick up from device to device, it automatically moves it across. Again, that's not active yet.
Yeah. When I saw the I'm just gonna recap for a second. When I saw the shortcut for tvOS, I thought, wait, you got to use a shortcuts app to build this? I was like, no, and it's like they've done that before, where it's like an obvious feature, but you got to use shortcuts to make it. But that'd be too far on TV.
Yeah, they still for user account switching on tvOS, they still need to make it more obvious. Where like, because right now the default way to do it from the remote is you have to swipe to the side and then get the control center tray thingy up and switch users there. No one normal knows how to do that. They don't know you can get to that menu. Like, they just need on the home screen of the Apple TV, like maybe one of the icons is just a user account. It just shows your current face and you click on it and you can just change to a different face. Like, it needs to be much more obvious because people don't remember what they're logged into. They just move around.
Yeah.
The other thing in this beta that was revealed is a new feature in Apple Maps. This is interesting, right? So up to now, for things like 5-star ratings or photos of a point of interest, Apple just relies on third-party partners like TripAdvisor or Yelp. They just, scrape the information, show it in the card in a nice way. But if you wanted to like add your own photo or see the photos or see more reviews, you tap on them and it would just direct you to the App Store to download the partners app like Yelp or whatever. As Apple is taking more and more initiative and control over the Maps experience, they finally realized that isn't, that's suboptimal. And so now in this latest beta, they're trialing a kind of in-house approach to this. So you can submit ratings, reviews, and photos to Apple directly. And so in the future, Apple will be able to show them natively in the application. And so you won't have to be like bounced out to other apps. So you'll be able to have like a nice integrated reviews and photos experience for places of interest like restaurants or bars or attractions and things like that. And it's just another way that Apple Maps can catch up to like the Google Maps experience, so they can actually own
it's
the
all
data.
part of just like them owning their own map data now.
Yeah, exactly. Like they don't have to rely on partners everywhere, and it's it's a nice thing that a lot of people have been wanting for a while. And just while we're talking about maps tangentially, the the new map data for the UK has started to roll out, at least in its like first testing thing, where it shows on a few devices, and they'll probably roll it back, and then it comes out. But that's cool to see because I've been waiting for that, and they promised it would happen before the end of the year, so it seems like we're first on the list. So that's pretty solid.
Yeah. And then this iPhone 12 stuff. So there's we're getting to what would normally be like close to release, to the event. And in this case, we're getting some like late last minute kind of leaks, but they're not coming from places that are, I guess they're not coming from two places. They're not coming from places that you can just dismiss off the bat because they're coming from places where it's like, you got to pay attention to them, but they're not like hardware leaks where it's like supply chain stuff where it's like this is happening. And so it's this gray area where you kind of need to know this stuff to know what you're looking at. And so with that in mind, like what's leaked this week, and how do you characterize it in terms of an Apple leak, an iPhone leak?
Yeah, so what we saw was screenshots of what is meant to be from a Apple prototype device, a production verification test model, and the settings screen basically shows a screen which would let the owner of the prototype enable ProMotion on the screen, so it lets them toggle between 60 hertz and 120 hertz refresh rate. Obviously, the 120 hertz rumor has been very wavy over the course of this cycle. Is it happening? Is it not happening? A lot of people have been wagering the idea that Apple has like competing test devices, some which are only using 60 hertz of screen, some which have 120 hertz support, and Apple's been weighing up whether they're going to ship one or the other because they've been having technical difficulties and there might be supplier problems. And the idea is that these latest screenshots kind of support that vision. I'm not really convinced, unfortunately. Like, I just don't think the screenshots are very convincing. Like, you just look at them and they're very easily faked. Like, anyone can make like a stock app in Xcode and just make a second screen that looks exactly like this. And the problem I have with it is that the words of the screenshot seem like they're written by someone who saw like the other leaks that said that 120 hertz is coming, and they just made it so that anyone could read it and it matches up. So this is the subtitle text for this enable high refresh rate setting. Please check if your PVT model supports high refresh rate. Attempting to enable high refresh rate on unsupported hardware may provoke unexpected behavior. Like, Apple test devices, they don't have wording like that. Like, you'd be lucky if you have any sort of description. You might just have a code name with a toggle, if that. Like, they're not going to have this thing where it's like, please make sure you only enable high refresh rate on these devices. Like, if they were competing test devices, some with 120 and some with 60, they would just be turned on permanently on both or whatever. They wouldn't, or to toggle them, you'd have to like plug it into Xcode and do some like special configuration. You wouldn't just like go into settings and there'd be this nice laid out menu that's like customer facing. It just wouldn't happen. Yeah. So I'm skeptical of it. Like, and I don't believe that, in August, Apple's still like got some PVT devices with 60 hertz and some with 120.
What's
and they're
PVT,
still deciding.
by the way?
PVT is production verification test, and there's like EVT, engineering verification test, and then there's PVT, and then there's one more which is like the final stage of production. Basically, it's like the stages of Apple prototype hardware.
Right.
And the idea is that each step kind of refines down to the final product. In my experience and my understanding, things like headline features, like whether it's got a ProMotion display or not, are already set before it even gets to the EVT stage. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that's something that's going on at the moment. Like, I think it's already decided one way or the other.
Yeah, they should spell check their leaks when they do them, when they fake them, because there's been some issues there too.
Yeah, the other thing is the word behavior is spelt with the UK spelling.
Yeah, that's why I think you made it up. I think.
It was definitely me. Bored. I spread it around left, right, and center. So the American audience or the American engineers that are actually testing this stuff probably wouldn't have written behavior with the U. But that is that. We also saw supposed video of an iPhone 12 Pro Max, which looks exactly like an iPhone 11 Pro Max. The only difference being that the left ear of the notch has the words AM or PM in it to denote the current hour, the current digital analog time. Because and the notch is the same size, but the idea is that because it's a 6.7 inch screen versus a 6.5 inch screen, there is slightly more width there that they can use to write AM or PM. Again, I'm not going to discredit entirely. I've got nothing to say that this is definitely not right, but it seems a bit fishy to me, and I'm pretty sure you can just find like a jailbreak tweak somewhere that adds the words AM or PM to the left-hand side of the notch in a smaller font anyway. So again, it's not super concrete evidence to me, and I wouldn't be, taking away from this that 120 hertz is on the table. I think sadly it's not happening. I'd love it to be a thing. I just think it's not happening.
People are going to be mad. Like, people who are like follow the smartphone industry at large, like that pay attention to every Android phone too, are that's going to be a big meme this year. Is that, wow, they started at 120 hertz on the iPad Pro display and they can't bring it to their phones, even though Android phone handsets have it. And
then they're removing the headphones and the charger. It's a kind of double whammy. There was a Quora report this week that said that adding 5G to the iPhone will cost Apple between $75 to $125 per unit, and removing the accessories is one way that they're offsetting that cost because they don't want to inflate the price of the actual phone. So Quo's opinion is that the iPhone 12 series will be roughly in line with the same price as the iPhone 11 series, even though if we look at the wider Android market, most of the time when they're introducing 5G handsets, they're having to raise the prices. And clearly a $75 to $125 cost is a lot. Like, that's a significant chunk of the overall price of the phone. So you can see why Apple might have to make some cost cutting in different areas, maybe with the inbuilt accessories. One of the other areas apparently where they're saving money is on the battery circuit boards. That was what Quo, obviously you know what Quo's like. His industry reports are just, he was like, Apple to use these random circuit boards for the battery, and it was like, they're going to save costs because it's going to cost them $75 to $125 units. So again, like, there probably is price reasons behind the not including the accessories in the iPhone 12 box, but that doesn't matter to an end customer. They're just going to see it as Apple being cheap, right?
Yeah. And then finally, there's I mean, we'll talk about some fun iPad stuff in a moment, but there's just our good friend, the Eurasian database, has been populated with new friends.
Yeah, the Eurasian Economic Commission hosts this like online encryption database, which is basically a website where companies have to register products that use encryption technology in order to sell in that region. And for whatever reason, Apple always submits the model identifiers ahead of when they announce the hardware. Like with the FCC, Apple has like embargoes, so stuff doesn't leak out until they actually announce the product. But for whatever reason, on this like Eurasian database, it always appears early. There's been so many products that have appeared on here and then come to fruition. Most recently, the iPad Pro 2020 model. And what we saw this week from the Eurasian Commission was filings for the Apple Watch Series 6, which we expect to have a blood oxygen sensor, and we don't know what else, and new iPad models. So if you were wondering if there's going to be
maybe
Apple Watch
you
Series...
have to have the new Apple Watch to work with GymKit Express.
Yeah. If you're wondering if there's going to be new Apple Watch hardware at all this year, because let's face it, there haven't been many rumors, right? Like, outside of blood oxygen, that's about it in terms of hardware.
There weren't rumors last year really either, and it was. I mean, it's the same processor. Even it's just they changed the display controller, right?
To enable always on.
So that's one thing I'm really curious about is, do we see a processor change this year? Because they literally could not say it's faster last year, and not that the watch is slow or has like that it has so many more opportunities than just speed improvements at this point. But maybe there's a chip that it is faster to handle some other task, like who knows what. But that's a big question though. Is do they do a new chip or do they call it a new name this year like they did last year? But it's really the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. Because it might just be a small scale update for a year.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about sketchy leaks. In a moment, we'll be talking about some leaks that I actually think are accurate. And they're very
I think
exciting.
This is like the classic leak that, when you see it, you're like, oh, that's the one. That's true.
But first, our final sponsor this week is Alogic. Happy Hour and 9 to 5 Mac are teaming up with Alogic to give away Apple's MacBook Air, the latest model, in celebration of Alogic launching its new 10-in-1 Super Dock. As the world's first universal 10-in-1 USB dock, the Alogic Super Dock adds functionality to your MacBook or iPad Pro, adding ports for just about anything you need. That includes two 4K displays running at 60 Hz when connected to the two HDMI outputs. It's also the world's first USB-C dock that can support dual display across all operating system platforms. The Alogic dock fully supports dual screen setups on Mac, Windows, and Chromebooks, if you use one of those. And it's USB-C rather than Thunderbolt 3, so it's much cheaper an alternative for a laptop user who just wants to connect two displays and some peripherals. And in addition to the dual displays, of course, you get the usual I/O support for USB-C and USB-A accessories, Ethernet port, radio, headphone audio jack, and an SD card reader. And in terms of charging, you're covered by 100-watt power delivery. The SuperDock features twin upstream USB-C cables to support a wide range of computers. The two connections are magnetic and can be attached or detached as required. SuperDock is currently 50% off the usual recommended retail price when you buy it now on Indiegogo for a limited time only. So hit the link in the show notes to check it out, and also go there to enter the giveaway for the MacBook Air. Thanks to Alogic for sponsoring the show.
I said that about. Oh, by the way, my kid wants a Chromebook. Every time there's a new iPad, she gets a new iPad basically because I test it out, and she's like, "This is cool. Can I get a Chromebook?" I'm just like, yeah.
They're not terrible, but you know.
Yeah, they're the envy of 7-year-olds.
Well, they get used at school all the time. That's what they know about them.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have an iPad anyway. iPad Air 4 stuff, like this is one of those pamphlet leaks where it's documentation that would probably be in the box, presumably, and it has one of those classic outlines of the device, and it has some set of instructions that tells you about the device. So what did we learn this week with iPad Air 4?
Yeah, and as a general rule, I'd say like Apple packaging leaks are quite rare. They don't come up very often. Like,
they're more than one.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they have
once
happened.
every few years.
Yeah. Like the classic one I remember, which was just when I was just around like my first year of working at 95 Mac, was the iPhone 6 pamphlet leaked like a week ahead of the event, and it revealed the words Touch ID for the first time, because at that time people knew that there was going to be a fingerprint sensor, but they didn't know it was called. Sorry, yeah, 5S. Yeah, that's why it was right around when I first joined, because it was 2013. Yeah, so iPhone 5S, people knew there was going to be a fingerprint sensor, but they didn't know what it was going to be called. And then this documentation leaked, and it was like the pamphlet for the 5S, and it said Touch ID, and it pointed at this home button. And I remember posting that and being like, I don't know if this is real or not, and it was turned out to be completely real. So that's always stuck in my mind. But yeah, it doesn't happen every single year. It happens occasionally. And I think and we also get a lot of people that make fake documentation and try and pass
when
it
it
off as
happens
real.
in real life, then there's like a recreation of it. The next one that I recall is the iPad Mini 4 getting Touch ID.
Yeah,
and that was like a digital manual that leaked.
That was in the iBook store, I'm pretty sure.
It got published, right?
Yeah.
It was the biggest hit in the iBook store.
Yeah. This latest leak is a pamphlet, and it seems to be legitimate. Like, a lot of people try and pass off like poor Photoshops as trying to get one over on us, but this is like multiple pages. It looks very legit. I can't see anything like untoward about it. Normally there's like obvious Photoshop artifacts. This seems pretty legit. It's written in French, it's written in Spanish, and it's the inner pamphlet manual for the 4th generation iPad Air. And what it shows is quite interesting, because it shows a new full screen design. So it kind of looks like the iPad Pro series, but obviously it's the iPad Air 4. Currently the iPad Air just looks like the base model iPad, because it's got chunky bezels on the side and a big button. This doesn't have a home button on the front. If you translate the Spanish, it says that it actually has Touch ID in the power button, so that'll be at the top, right? So you've got this full screen display with slim bezels, just like an iPad Pro. No Face ID, but the Touch ID home button in the top. And then they're also apparently replacing the Lightning port with USB-C, which again is like the iPad Pros.
So does it make sense that this kind of sounds in some ways better than the iPad Pro that we have, like the 2018 and 2020 iPad Pro, because like but by being in Air, it'll be affordable in that like $500-$600 range.
Yeah, currently the iPad Air is priced at $499.
Yeah, USB-C is awesome, and Touch ID is reliable. Face ID I was thinking about this earlier. Face ID on the iPad gives you the ability to unlock it without a passcode or having a home button. But that's what we like Face ID for. It's not that I got rid of fingerprint sensing, that I got rid of the home button and enabled these full screen designs.
Right.
And so to have it on an iPad Air 4, it's like, okay, cool. It isn't in the screen, but also you're not going to get that goofy your fingers covering the camera to unlock your thing, warning. It's actually, in that way, it's like more practical. And then, okay, what do you do with Face ID, being like the true depth sensor, I guess? You can do an emoji, you can do portrait selfies, maybe? None of those are like, pro, or, it's kind of like, they're fun on the phone, but they're not like tablet centric. And so I was thinking like, man, because I sold my iPad and everything, like, and I haven't missed it in a way that, like, with the watch, I was like, I kind of want to get the watch back. But with the iPad, like, there's really no, I don't feel that. And I think a lot of that, I hadn't considered it, but it is that, like, that is like an $800 and up, like easily $1,000, $1,200 when you add accessories, experience. And to bring that down to $600-$700, it certainly, if you can judge those same set of features for a lot less money, and it's way more compelling.
Yeah, and our friend on Twitter, Love to Dream, he actually predicted this many months ago. He said there was going to be a full-screen design iPad Air this year with Touch ID in the home button in the power button. So it seems that the rumors have been adding up. And Min-Chi Kuo previously reported that the iPhone SE update for next year will include a redesigned iPhone SE that has, again, like a full screen design with slim bezels, but it won't have Face ID. It will use a Touch ID side button like situation. Yeah. So it seems like Apple's lining up a product lineup of full screen devices that don't use Face ID.
Now there
probably
might be differences like
reasons.
What is the iPad Air right now? What are we on Air 3? So what are the speakers like on that? Is it stereo?
Yeah, it should. Yeah, it's stereo speakers.
So that's cool. What are some other differences? I mean, it's got.
It has
bezels.
a high quality display. It uses like the wide color P3 gamut stuff, which the cheap one doesn't.
As long as it isn't the layer, the gap layer,
It has a slightly better camera.
Yeah,
and that's
again, it's an iPad. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this is kind of cool. It's like the Pro is where they've had to take the line up expensive, to get kind of the stuff that we want to see, and it does make sense that, I mean, 2-3 years on that becomes like the mainstream iPad, and that's a pretty big deal to me. So this is the first iPad that is not a Pro and super expensive, presumably, that it's kind of interesting, and in some ways maybe better. Like this, by having less stuff that you don't need, the cost can become more approachable. And then there's the whole thing with Face ID and Touch ID, like on a tablet.
Yeah, and someone when we posted this story this morning, a commenter on Twitter did say that like a side button Touch ID is probably less convenient on an iPad than it would be on a phone, because obviously with a phone you just grip it in one hand and you can just like put your finger straight on the button.
I'm just handling it all over.
With an iPad, I guess you're picking it up though, right? So you just get used to the flow if you pick it up at that particular side. So you press down on the button and it can unlock, I guess. I think it's a perfectly good compromise though. If they can give you a full screen iPad experience for the same, current iPad Air prices, it's way better, because like the iPad Air is what, $499, and the iPad Pro start at like $800. So it's all, you're closing in like half the price. So if they can give you a modern design iPad with a newer chip, and the only like concession is the Face ID, you have to press the power button instead. Like, I'm down for that. I think that's really good.
And presumably it would work with the second generation Apple Pencil, which they don't call Apple Pencil Pro. It does cost more because it has that one other gesture where you tap it and it can do things. But because of the form factor, it's the kind that it has no connector to it. It pairs magnetically, or it charges magnetically, and it pairs over Bluetooth, and that's how it works anyway. So, and also iPad Airs have colors that you don't have. There's in the Pro you get silver or space gray. You also have gold in the Air. So
yeah, that's true. The only thing I find questionable about this is the switching USB-C for Lightning. Like, I guess they're going to do it, but that feels something they could have kept for the Pro lines. Like, I don't think they had to.
I wouldn't like it if they kept it. I mean, it's better. It's like it's for a. I mean, you have USB-C on all the Macs.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, but I guess if you'd have told me they were going to do a full screen iPad this year, I'd have probably just assumed they were going to keep Lightning, just because they're going to do it on the phones, and so.
Yeah, something that Mike A mentioned in the chat on YouTube is that it'll work with the Magic Keyboard. So that's the keyboard stand, which is very expensive, and so.
Oh, the floating one, yeah.
The floating one, yeah. And that's when you look at the iPad Pro, super expensive, Magic Keyboard, super expensive. That's a very expensive combination. But again, lower the cost. With a reasonable kind of PC replacement, iPad Air 4, and then that keyboard, while almost as much as the iPad, possibly like maybe 50% of the iPad cost, the total cost is still more reasonable than with the Pro.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, do you want to do some Q&A now?
Yeah, let's do Q&A.
Take a look at the chat. Cool. I'll let you lead it off.
Anthony asked, do you think they're going to keep the iPhone 11 around when they introduce the iPhone 12?
I always love thinking about like what they're going to do there, because sometimes they get rid of the new thing, last year's thing, and sometimes they keep it around, and sometimes they keep old stuff around for a long, long time.
Yeah, I think they'll keep the 11s around probably. Like the 12s are going to cost Apple more because of the 5G stuff.
They have the 10R now, so the 10R could get rid of the 11 and just keep doing the 10R, or they could get rid of the 10R and keep the 11. I'm not sure.
Or they could keep the 10R and add the 11.
Yeah, I don't think that makes sense. They could, but I hope
they've done it. They've done a lot of weird stuff before, just for cost reasons, right? Like,
yeah, sure, it's a business.
Yeah, and at the moment, I feel like there's a lot of splintering where they want to keep the 10R around for like emerging markets like India and stuff. So even if they take it off for sale in the US, they'll probably keep producing it for a long time, just like push it down the lineup. So I think the 11 will stay around. The 10R, I think you're probably right now you've got the SE 10R, 11 Pro. I could see him keeping the 10R around even in the US. Like, I know it's kind of ugly, but at the moment the way the economy is, like, price economics matter. So if they could bring the 10R down another $100 and just put the iPhone 11 in the 10R space, they'll probably. That's good, if you know what I mean.
Did I experience something where I'm only seeing like the last half hour of chat?
Yeah, it's disappeared.
Oh no, we had too much chat this week. I'm sorry.
We had so much chatter.
If you asked me earlier question, we can't see it. I'm so sorry about that.
The Q&A is.
Yeah.
Someone did ask, do you think iPhone 12 Pro models will have 128 gigs base storage? Maybe. I don't know. Like, they're right now 64, right? So I could see him carry on 64 for another year. Like,
64 ain't bad.
64 isn't bad. I mean, obviously 128 is always better, but 64, like, I think they could easily get away with it for another year, right? Yeah. Like, out of the list of complaints that people would be ready to write about the iPhone 12, the storage space would not be one of them if they just carried on with 64 gigs.
Yeah, somebody had a very clever question I saw earlier in the hour that they asked me if I thought that the new Angels and Airwaves album would sound good on the iPad Air 4 speakers. And that's a legitimate question. That album is in the works, and I can't wait for it. So kudos to you, listener. You know me well. And then 2, when I'm thinking about the iPad Air 4, is like, oh, it's a reasonably priced iPad with cool features. It doesn't feel like it's from like a generation ago. Then the speakers are part of that. It's like if they're not stereo, then that would not be good. Like, if I like the ones where it's on all 4 sides, all 4 corners. So that's a big thing. So cool.
Do you think a new Apple TV Gen 6 will come out this year? Yes.
It's due.
It's due. I believe it's going to be a small update, like a spec bump update.
It makes sense to do something with that, like that's like a bullet list on a TV Plus segment.
Or an arcade, Apple Arcade segment.
Or an arcade segment.
Yeah.
And what was it in HomeKit this past couple of weeks? We've seen that there's a new category of device, it's like, or a new classification where it's streaming box or streaming stick. What is that?
They've just added new categories. So
Sigmund just asked that too. So, hey.
Yeah, they've added new categories to the like the iOS code. So like how like an Airport Express or Apple TV appears in the Home app, where there's now new like icons and registrations for streaming stick and generic set-top box, as if there's going to be some sort of like maybe third-party HomeKit integration for like the Amazon Fire Stick or something. Like, we're not entirely sure where it's going, but I mean, it's interesting. Like, if they start adding like HomeKit features to third-party devices, then that does kind of erode a lot of the Apple TV's uniqueness, right? Like, more so than ever. But I think I think people saying like there's no point for the Apple TV anymore because of like the TV app being ever missing the point. Like, Apple Arcade is a huge deal for them. The Apple TV is a really nice streaming box. Like, I think it's the nicest, it's just too expensive. And between TV Plus, Arcade, the Apple game controller that's probably coming next year, I think they're going to carry on having Apple TV boxes. The Gen 6 is probably just going to be like the Gen 5, the Apple TV 4K, but with an increased processor specs. Like, I don't think the box is changing form factor. I don't think the remote's changing either, much to some people's discontent. But if they can up the specs and just bring the price down, like from the 179 is too expensive, 150 is too expensive. It needs to be like under $100. If they can do that, it's perfectly fine update. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Ryan in the chat asked, "What's the next big hit coming to Apple TV Plus?" My answer isn't the next one because it's coming in 2021, which is just next year. It's not that far away. But Foundation, they showed the trailer for that at what was it, WWDC?
WWDC,
maybe?
Yeah.
That looked really good.
Yeah, that looked really good.
It looked like really high value production.
Yeah, they have a lot of like sci-fi series in development at the moment that I think Foundation was meant to come out this year, and COVID just delayed it. So,
and you do this story on 9to5 Mac where you updated this your Apple TV Plus guide, and it has like everything that's available now or coming soon, whether it's
anything that they give a date to, I put on the list, because obviously there's like 100 projects that are like quote unquote in development / in production, but anything that Apple officially announces a date for, I add to this story, so you can check there.
It's a really good resource.
And now they have the most stuff coming soon with a date than they ever have before. There's like 9 things coming soon, and if once those things come out, that's like a 20% increase in the overall size of the TV Plus catalog, just because we're still in the early innings there. Like, only this week they announced like 3 new documentaries, like 3 new documentary series are coming before the end of the year. Yeah. So they're powering forward. Like, people who think TV Plus is like didn't have a great launch, so they're just going to kill it, are just short-sighted. Like, all of the streaming deals they're making with all these massive creators, they're all like multiple years long. They'll be invested in this for at least 5 years before they decide that if they're going to stick in it and continue. Like, they've already made the deals. The content's in production. That it's not going to go anywhere anytime soon.
Are you committed to updating that TV Plus guide forever?
Well, for the time, I mean, if they get to the point where they're releasing so much stuff that it becomes unwieldy, then if they get to the point where they actually have like a decent website where you can see everything available in a nice list and
a nice TV app,
nice TV app, then maybe it will become irrelevant.
Like,
but
you couldn't make that for Netflix right now, and there's not, and Apple TV Plus is so small that you could have a definitive TV guide that isn't like embarrassing because it's populated enough. But they haven't done that user interface yet.
Yeah, exactly. There's lots of things about the TV app that could be better. But so if they keep to the pace of adding, because I think in general they're never going to have the output that Netflix has, right? Because where they do like 10, Netflix releases like 10 things a week some weeks. Like, it's just crazy, and that's fine. Like, that's certainly a strategy. TV Plus is never going to match that quantity output. Obviously, they're going to have to increase the rate at which they bring stuff out beyond what they do right now. Because right now it's not even like guaranteed to have more than one thing in a month, right? In September they only have 2 things planned. Like, I think if they can get to a point where they can consistently have one new thing out every single week, that's good enough, right? Like, to have high quality productions out every single week, that's a manageable and attractive proposition. And if it's that basis, then I guess I can keep updating the post for a long time to come, I guess. So
and then you train whoever does it after you.
Yeah, I mean, I just do a script. Like, it's almost automatic. I only have to enter like 4 things per show, and it generates the post every single time, which is quite handy.
That's pretty good. J Catsman89 asks a fun one. What is your favorite gas station and road trip snack item? I've discovered that you can buy individual bananas and have consistent quality and have a good experience with a gas station banana on a road trip. And I've had many a banana this week.
I like apples. I love to eat apples.
At this hotel, they've got saran wrap apples, and that's so that it's not contact with the people around it.
It makes you sound like such a fanboy. It's not because it's any relation
I
to
love
Apple,
apples.
the company.
Like, shout out to
apples are just really nice.
You know what's great about apples? Apples, it's both like a physical food that you eat and like crunch on, and it's the source of apple juice, and so it's kind of like a thirst quenching factor too.
Yeah. Apples are great.
Yeah. Bananas are great too, though, by the way. Like,
monopolistic apples, not so much. Because
bananas have their own. They're in this hotel. They're wrapping their apples in saran wrap. The bananas have their own wrapper, and the inside is it's like the perfect social distancing food.
And one more question just to round out.
Sure.
Do you think Apple AirTags are coming this year? They're definitely coming. And
where are the AirTags?
Yeah, where are the AirTags? Find me the AirTags. That's the point of the AirTags, to find them. They're definitely coming, and I'm pretty sure Apple meant for them to come out last fall, because why did they add a U1 chip to the iPhone 11? They did it for a laugh, right? I think they were trying to line up the AirTags UWB feature.
They did it for a BMW car.
yeah, definitely. Alongside the iPhone 11. So clearly it got delayed from last fall. Now it's probably coming in. Like, most of the rumors still point to it coming out this year, so I guess it's coming out this year. There are people saying that Apple's not going to do it while all the COVID pandemic lockdown stuff is still going on, because it's not really an attractive proposition.
They kind of answered that during the WWDC when they were
right.
Right now the world is different, but when things get back to normal, here's all the new map features that we've been working on.
Yeah, they don't hold the features back for just because of the current situation, right?
Yeah.
Like,
really
I think
quick,
the same thing will happen with the tags. Like, they'll bring them out. They'll say, look, you can make sure your keys aren't lost in your house. If you go out for a little trip, you can see where everything is. And then, as everyone starts moving around again, you can use them this here and here. Like, their roadmaps, they can't just sit stuff on the roadmaps forever. They're producing these things. They have to bring them out at some point. You know what I mean?
Really quick, this week there's been news stories about AirPower.
Oh, yeah.
There was a teardown.
There was a supposed prototype of an AirPower unit that was teared down and shown in a video.
Okay, and looked like a butterfly keyboard on the inside.
Yeah. Yeah, which looks just like the patent filings that we saw for so long while AirPower was still alive. And then there was a Bloomberg report that said Apple's working on a less ambitious wireless charging pad. What does it mean?
Yeah, what does less ambitious mean?
Well, I guess it's not going to charge 3 things at once. I mean, Ming Chi Kuo already said that Apple's making a smaller wireless charging pad for this year.
Yeah.
Last week we talked about the magnets, right? Like the magnetic rings that probably are going to line up with some sort of wireless charging accessory.
That's right. Yeah.
So I think Apple's just going to make like a wireless charging pad that's nice. Like I don't think it's going to have multi-device charge or anything fancy. Like it's going to be less ambitious and probably overpriced, but pretty nice.
I love to be less ambitious. Like it's really just lowered those ambitions.
But by the way, everyone always says like Apple AirPower. Look at all these third-party companies making all these AirPower clones, and clearly Apple can't do it. Like, what are they're just getting embarrassed left, right, center.
None of them are amazing.
None of them are amazing. None of them actually match specifications of what the AirPower mat was. Like, even in most of the leaks that came out, it was like Apple is seeing overheating problems because their design wants this product to be this thin or this thick, right? Like, of course Apple could make this product if they made it like this and made it a big box, right? But that's not who they are. And the product market department, defines the vision for the product. They want it to be like a relatively small mat that could charge 3 things at once. And they couldn't do it, so they canned it. Even a year and a half on, there is still nothing on the market that comes even close to matching what Apple promised with the AirPower experience, which I think shows that it's not possible. Yeah. So everyone going like, here's this random third-party company that's beat Apple to AirPower. It's like, they made a nice wireless charger, sure, but they didn't make AirPower.
Yeah. All right, that is the Happy Hour podcast for this week. If you enjoyed the show, you can listen every Thursday afternoon on YouTube at about 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I think that's 1 p.m. Pacific Time. If you like the audio, you can subscribe at Apple Podcast, to Overcast, on Spotify. And if you really enjoy the show, share it with a friend, leave a recommendation, leave a review. We really appreciate that. And if you ever want to come and join us for the live question and answer session at the end of each episode, that is on YouTube at youtube.com/9to5Mac. If you have any feedback, you can email us at happyhour@9to5Mac.com. I am Zach Hall. I'm on Twitter at ApolloZach. Benjamin Mayo, you're on Twitter at
BZA Mayo.
All right. I was waiting for that .com, but that's a different setup that I do for you. So
that is a different setup. That's where I blog at, BZAMayo.com.
.com. Yeah, awesome. All right. I will see you later, Benjamin Mayo.
Bye-bye.
Bye.